Zdravo! Hey, I'm really excited. Today is going to be a cool vlog. In my previous vlog we were doing wet plate collodion, but I was invited to do a workshop in elementary school and I have to find more safer alternative. You know, this camera originally was loaded either with film or with plates. Film is not produced anymore. You know, this format 10 centimeters is not produced anymore. Plates, you could do plates, but I was thinking, what if we use ordinary silver gelatin paper? Let's see the results. From this negative we made this. Isn't it awesome? Wait, let me go closer. Okay guys, I'll be very honest with you. I'm in photography for all my life, and when I was doing this experiment with this camera and this cheap paper, I wasn't expecting half as good results. And you know what? I'm going to share it with you now step by step. I hope this video will not be again like 20 minutes, but it's very likely. That's why, you know, I show you first the results and now we get dirty. Okay, what do we need for this Topshit paper negatives? First of all, paper, of course. I recommend a resin-coated paper. Doesn't matter which brand it is. This one is Ilford, but my favorite brand is Foma. Češi do toho! You know, I studied in Czech Republic, of course. You know, my preference is Foma. So resin-coated paper. And glossy, pick glossy. You know, if you pick any kind of surface, that surface will affect the sharpness of your image. Paper. Developer, I tried multigrade and it's too contrasty. You know this, let me show you. This is the paper that is done with multigrade developer. This is kind of great, you see, like as a positive image is great, has a deep blacks, whites are clean, the middle tones are there, but it's too contrasty for a negative. That's why I use ID11 or Kodak D76. So I use film developer because the film developer has much less hydroquinone inside than positive developer, and because okay, yeah, I know hydro what? Anyway, this one is much less contrasty, the tonality is much greater, it's much weaker too than this one. So that's why I recommend you to use the film developer. Again, I used Ilford, but Foma! Yeah, I'm hugely paid by Foma. You know, I'm rich and famous, what do you expect? These two photos had the same exposure. But this one was developed with a ID11 and this one was developed with multigrade, with paper developer. If you don't have a film developer, you can use paper developer, but just don't develop it for 2 minutes or not even 1 minute. Dilute it 1 + 19 and develop it for 45 seconds or something like that. Okay, about exposure. This one was exposed for 10 seconds, this one was for 40 seconds, and this one was 3 seconds. The exposure is crucial. This is perfect exposure, underexposed, overexposed. When you look at a good negative, you will have details in shadows and the dead blacks will be clear. At the same time, the whites will not be too dense. You see that? The whites are really nice. So okay, let me show you underexposed negative. You see? The underexposed negative doesn't have any details in blacks, in the shadows. And at the same time, I overdeveloped it, so these whites are very dense. Perfect development, overdevelopment. Perfect black, perfect shadows and perfect blacks. Underexposed shadows and underexposed blacks. This is overexposed negative, which means how do you know? Look at the blacks. The deepest black is not clean. You see the black is already gray. Here the black is really nice. You see, the black is totally black and the shadows have information. And here the shadows are, oh, let me focus. And here the shadows are gray already and there is no black. And consequently the whites are totally blown out. At least this one I was not developing so long. So imagine that I would develop so long that, you know, the whites will become so dense as this underexposed negative. So okay, and this one is the perfect one. The blacks are clean, the blacks are clear, the shadows have detail, and the whites are not too dense. You will probably ask me, what is the ISO of the paper? Wrong question! Sensitivity of a photo paper, we are talking about red, orange, green, yellow, is neglectable to the sensitivity to UV light. This one doesn't show the UV light, and it shows, you know, red just as it would show the blue. So that's why this is so unreliable. Example, these two shots are exposed as light meter was showing me, but this one is shot in the shadow where the leaves filtered UV light, and this one was shot in the straight sun. This one was shot in the morning, this one was shot in the afternoon. In the afternoon it's much less UV light, and this was the UV light that was still remained was filtered through the leaves, but light meter was showing me the same values, right? So that's why, you know, I advise you not to use light meter at all and just shoot, and you will see, sooner you will ditch a light meter, sooner you will learn how to judge and guess the right exposure. Yes, I know, you're thinking there is no life without light meter. Maybe not where you live, but here in a Topshit land, it does exist. Oh, just a side note, we don't take refugees, don't come here. If you try, you know, Melania will build her own wall. I mean, it's nothing new, you know, like this is 120 years old stuff, you know. Ansel Adams invented this zone system and exposed for shadows, developed for whites. It's nothing new, but rarely people or photographers understand what that actually means, like in a real situation. You know, standardization, it brought many, I mean, huge amount of benefits, but also we lost some, you know. And now I'm going to show you side by side how the picture develops when there is overexposed, underexposed, and correctly exposed. So you will see how it's happening, because in a first couple of seconds of developing an image, you know exactly if you have a correct exposure or wrong exposure. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you are doing wet plate collodion, paper negatives, or film. The principle is totally the same. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video clip. In this video clip you have seen 3 papers exposed differently and developed about the same. Underexposed was developed longer, that's why the highlights became so much darker. And this one was actually, development was cut, so you see that the highlights are not as dense. Anyway, but you have seen how, like, when you are developing, you immediately see if it's overexposed or underexposed. If it's underexposed, just the highlights are building. The shadows are remaining without any information. Whereas if it's overexposed, everything is getting gray. Everything. There is no clear blacks or so. Anyway, if you didn't understand, don't worry. You just have to do it by yourself. When you will do it by yourself, everything will be clear. You just have to practice. Okay, the crucial part of this process is, of course, how to make from an analog paper negative into physical digital print. First, you scan it. If you don't know how to scan it, go on YouTube, learn how to scan it. You just scan it. And then, okay, let's start the screen recording. Start. Okay. So now we have it. Then I import it into the Lightroom. First of all, I will crop it like so. Okay, then I will drag the tone curve. The highlights I will drag down, and the blacks I will drag up. It's very, very soft, so I will build in the clarity 100%. Okay, let's keep it as 100 because it's a little bit too much. Dehazing, yeah, I prefer to have it, let's say 20. Okay, now you have to remember it's just the opposite. So if I make like exposure +2, it becomes darker. If I go the opposite direction, it goes brighter. The blacks are dealing with highlights. and the highlights are dealing with blacks. Okay. So what else? Oh, the tone, the tone. We go to the split toning, and we just pick the highlights, and we go somewhere. Too much, like this, huh? Yeah, that's good. Great. What I don't like is in this area here is a little bit foggy, like misty. This mist comes from the, oh, I didn't told you that. This lens, because it's uncoated and the backlight is actually dispersed, and it's really bad lens if we are talking about the property of photographing something against the light. You get this kind of softness, but that's actually cool, isn't it? Okay, so let's bring this softness a little bit down. So I'll put the clarity up, and here the brush flow like this. Okay, that's it. And then when you export it, you set the well, I just put it in JPEG. It's totally fine. When you export it, you have to resize to the exact number, the size that you want, and sharpen for a glossy paper. And that's about it. Simple, easy. Okay, that's it. This is the final result. With this folding brownie and cheap materials, we created a piece that I like a lot. And I must confess something. When I was a photo editor and photographer at Mladina Weekly, I was thinking, how can I apply antiquarian aesthetic, pictorialistic lenses and this aesthetic into my daily press portraiture. And I was doing with wet plate collodion. And, oh my god, that was really, really, really difficult. On location, under heavy deadlines, in places that you don't know where it is. I've done it, of course, I'm fanatic. But, if I would think a little bit more and I would use that technique, that would release me a lot of stress and that energy would be invested in creativity. Anyway, so why I'm telling you this is because if you buy yourself a changing box, like a Fuji changing box, like a dark box, or even changing bag, to change the films. With that, with this cheap materials and cheap light cameras, you can travel wherever you want. You can shoot on location. You can do anything you want with an old technique. Yes, of course it's slow. That's the whole point of it, to take it slow, to rethink what you're doing and make something that nobody else does. So that's the epilogue of this vlog. Okay guys, that's it. Today is a Saturday, I start to work on this vlog on Monday, believe it or not. And I didn't fool around, I really worked. Anyway, I hope, but I learned something, and that's the point, I learned something and I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Obviously, because you wouldn't waste 20 minutes of your time on this, on my haircut, isn't it? Anyway, this print is going on eBay. I have to sell, I have only 2 kidneys, and I have to make a living too. Anyway, this print is a lambda print. It's a digitally illuminated photographical paper. It's a cool quality. It's a very good quality. Maybe it will serve you as a inspiration to do your work. This print will be on eBay. in two versions, one as in matte and only a print. I mean, shipping costs more than matting and framing, you know, so, but you know, if you want to receive a print in a nice matte, you could do that. It's edition of 99 prints, and it's only 35 euros. You know, I'm not emotionally attached to that. I'm not building my ego on the price of my prints. I much rather fire employees, close down factories, doing the hedge funds, you know, maneuvers and that kind of stuff. You know, cool stuff, you know. Anyway, so you know, you can afford it if you want. You can buy also my book if you want to support me, or you can become my Patreon at patreon.com/burgtrin. Either way, top shit happens!